Do you feel like dancing too now, Tom? Like Terry?
I am. I'm ready to go.
I saw you over there in the background before we came live. You're cutting the rug, as they used to say in your day.
It's as much as I can cut, buddy.
Yes, it's probably not the same as cutting wood, but it's definitely. My best dance move was foot and shoulders against the wall, right? Holding up the place for sure. So you ready to get to work? A big weekend this weekend in Kentucky Derby and Breeders' Cup qualifying races. 4 races on Saturday. Those are the ones we're covering. Today's Friday, and there's actually quite a few running today as well. But we're covering the Saturday races at Belmont, the Champagne Stakes, and then there's 3 of them at Santa Anita. So from coast to coast. You ready to get this thing started? You ready? How did that song go? Y'all ready for this? Or what was the other one? There's something about let's get started in here or something. I don't remember.
Let's get something started now.
There you go. We should stick to horse racing, huh? So the first one up on our list is at Belmont. It is the Champagne Stakes. It is race 8 at the Belmont card tomorrow. It's 1 mile on the main track, and the winner in this one gets to go 10 Kentucky Derby points, as well as a ticket to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile. So let's take a little bit of a walk back through history lane and see what the profile of a Champagne winner looks like. First of all, I have to mention there are some names of horses here that I recognize, and I'm sure some of which are, pretty much on the radar still. Jackie's Warrior, Tis the Law, Union Rags are a couple that are in there that I remember. There's probably some more that you remember as well. You want to play the favorite in your exacta because the Public's Choice has finished first 5 of the last 10 and second in another 3. So you got to have that favorite. Unfortunately, you're not going to get a big ticket, it looks like. It looks like to me like Stalkers and Closers had the slight edge. In the last 10, they won 6, running 4th or back at the quarter-mile marker. And finally, it doesn't really look like post position plays much of a role in who actually wins the race. So it's not really an advantage. They got that big run down the backstretch, so that's not surprising to me. And when you look at the pace setup, Tom, let's take a look at this. This is how the early pace and late pace figures rank these horses. You see anything here that you disagree with? Jack Christopher and Gunite getting to the lead, and My Prankster and Command Performance charging the hardest late, relatively speaking?
I do not. Obviously, I'll talk about Wit in a little bit, but,
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about the horses then. So looking at the field, the first horse post position is that horse Wit that you talked about, ridden by Irad Ortiz, trained by Todd Pletcher. What do you like or dislike about Wit?
I truly think Wit is the best 3-year-old best 2-year-old in the country. Long story short, this horse just does not break well, which led to the great move in the maiden and the I take your breath away move a la Secretariat you saw in the Sanford. He broke even worse in the Hopeful and just could not make up that ground. Ran from the back of the pack, got within a couple lengths of Gunite, but just used way too much horse to get there. Gunite pulled away. What I don't understand, and I'm never going to question Todd Pletcher, because let's face facts, Todd Pletcher has 3 of the 6 entrants in this field, and his owners have spent almost $1.5 million on those horses today. But this horse has no gate works. So is Pletcher taking this horse every day to the gate and not doing it in a published work? What is he doing? If this horse breaks, this horse is the class of the field. This horse is the class of the division. If this horse does not break, I think he's going to have to fight his 2 barn mates to win this race. And we are going to see what this horse has inside and how he's going to overcome trouble. And I think even though he's been facing long fields in Saratoga, this is going to be a horse that maybe not today, but in 5 or 6 weeks when we go to the Breeders' Cup Juvenile, we're going to see what this horse has.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it's a horse that's going to be tough to beat if he can get a clean break. My Prankster, you mentioned Todd Pletcher is owning this field essentially. Kind of like when you go all on a pick 3 or pick 4. He's got My Prankster too with Luis Saez. The horse probably be a little bit closer to the pace.
I really like this horse. If you look at this race, he broke his maiden and won by 10 and just drew off the last 16th of a mile. So I don't think stretching out from 6.5 to a mile is going to be a problem. It's still on the Belmont track, just one turn. I really looked hard at picking this horse over Wit, even as much as I'm so biased toward Wit in this 2-year-old division.
Jack Christopher, probably your pace setter, another one that won a really big race, some really nice fractions last time, top last race speed figure. Do you think, Tom, that he can get to the front, stay in the front, and never look back? I think that's his way to the winner's circle.
I think Jack Christopher can get to the front. I think for Chad Brown, which is a rarity, a catch me if you can type scenario, Munnings, Russian, no blushing. I just see a lot of speed and not a lot of stamina in the breeding. A couple 5 furlong works. As impressive as this horse was in his debut, I just can't get behind to support it today.
And then Cavad, do you think this is simply forgettable? Is our catch line now at 50-1? It certainly looks like David Aragona doesn't think the horse has a chance.
Beaten by Wit 15 lengths last out. We've got a lot of races to look at in a short amount of time. So next,
I agree with you. Over its head. Gunite did take advantage of the slow start for Wit last time and ran, I think, a really nice race.
I think as much as the slow start, Gunite took advantage of a racetrack that has a great speed bias. That racetrack that day was favoring favorites. If you look at this horse, now while this is a talented horse and 5 starts, has never been off the board, it took this horse 3 races to break its maiden. It came back and got beat in the Saratoga Special in a race you shouldn't think this horse would have got beat by almost 5 lengths. I think the media hype machine, it's Steve Asmussen, it's Winchell, Thoroughbreds is the owner. I think a lot of people, this horse beat Wit. I think this horse is going to be very overbet today, and I do not think this horse is going to win. I don't think this horse is going to run second.
All right. And then Command and Performance. It's a pretty skinny field, right? I think that rounds out the field to 6 horse. Indeed, it does. What do you think about Command and Performance? It looks like one that'll probably break along with Wit and then probably try to chase Wit to the winner's circle.
I agree. And again, this horse finished second last time out to the only horse that had any experience in that maiden race. Ran against a track bias the same weekend the same day as the Hopeful, was on the same card. Ortiz obviously chooses to ride Wit, so Gaffleone takes the mount today, which is a downgrade in rider. But I'm picking this horse to run second in this race.
He's going to pick second. All right, well, so you kind of tipped your hand a little bit. So you got Wit, Command, Performance. That means you got to tell us who finishes third.
It's going to be an all-Pletcher trifecta with my prankster, and then I'm going to go Jack Christopher.
Yeah, for me, I think Wit is the class of the field, too. I do think Gunite runs better than you expect he's going to run. And then I do think Jack Christopher and my prankster, I think those 4 horses, it's going to run to form because I do think they're the best 4 horses in the field. So now we're going to hop on our, what you call it, technology jet, if you will, and come from one side of the country all the way to the other, to Santa Anita. They don't have any today. I think they're running on Friday when we record this, the American Pharoah, which I think is a Kentucky Derby qualifying race, if I remember correctly. Yes, but they don't have any on Saturday. But the Santa Anita Sprint Championship Stakes, that's a mouthful. That's a race that's going to be a qualifier for the Breeders' Cup Sprint as well. Now let's take a look at the profile of a winner of this particular spot. The might be a sprint, but you don't want to be too fast early. None. I couldn't believe this when I went through this. But none of the last 10 champions went wire to wire. You would think out on the West Coast in some of these big races where they soup up the track, someone would get to the lead and keep it, but nobody did. So 9 of the last 10 to hoist the trophy at the sprint ran thirder back at the quarter pole. But you got to remember, a lot of these fields, as I mentioned, are skinny, which really surprised me that none went wire to wire. You have 5 and 6 horse fields. Whatever you do, do not play the chalk horse to come in third. The favorite finished first 4 times, second and fourth 3 times, but for whatever reason does not want to run third. And you got to keep an eye on Peter Miller. That trainer has been hot there, winning 3 of the last 4, including last year's champion. CZ Rocket, who's also running in the Awesome Again Stakes a little bit later on, and we'll talk about that. Looking at the pace of this race, Vertical Threat looks like it's going to be the fastest out of the gate, chased by Flagstaff. And then on the way home, Flagstaff and CZ Rocket might be the ones with the best late pace. Do you agree with that setup or not, Tom?
I, for the most part, do. I think Dr. Shivel will be running a little bit better at the end of the race, but I do agree with that.
Well, you know, it's just their late pace numbers. It doesn't really take into account where they are relative to the rest of the field. So talking about Dr. Shivel, this is a horse that's partly owned by friends of the show, Dean and Patty Reeves. I don't know if you've ever had a chance to meet them, Tom, but they're definitely two of the nicest people you'll ever come across. Tell me what you think about their horse.
I think his horse is running well. You know, once this horse needed a couple 4.5 furlong race, which is always kind of quirky for a horse to start its career, and then running 5.5 at Los Al, which is a converted quarter horse track. I'll throw both of those out. This horse has won 4 in a row. This horse is 2 for 2 at Del Mar, which means, hey, we're going to look toward the Breeders' Cup. This horse has won at Santa Anita. You know, this horse, it's a 3-year-old, and it's a 3-year-old against 2 7-year-olds today. And I think the 7-year-olds are starting to lose a step. And in fact, a CZ Rocket, he might be losing 3 steps. I think this horse is the class of the field. I think this horse is going to get a nice trip as far as you're going to have Vertical Threat and Colt Fiction go out and try to set the early pace. This is going to set it up for this horse to come from the back. You know, 6 furlongs, this horse has never lost in 3 starts at the distance. Handles it well. Pratt's been on for 3 wins in a row. I mean, it's all systems go with this one.
Yeah, I like the fact when you look at its internals, too, they all improved last time. And I know from talking to Dean and Patty, they had hoped to put the horse on the Kentucky Derby Trail last year, but unfortunately got a little dinged up and the Del Mar Futurity, and then just didn't recover in time to get to be a part of that process. So he is already qualified for the Breeders' Cup, and I know that they're excited about that, and I'm excited for them. Like I said, very nice people. Vertical Threat. This looks like one that should be close to the front. It's an all-or-nothing horse, Tom. Either gets to the lead and wins, or he doesn't do anything.
You know, this horse does not run well locally. This horse runs us well. You know, this horse can run very fast. This horse can get to the front. We'll just try to take him gate to wire. That's the only chance this horse has. You know, you go back and look at some of the races out of town, run well, struggles locally.
Next horse is the Colt Fiction that you mentioned, another one that you feel like is going to try to press the pace and then see if it can hold on late. It's done well at Santa Anita, 2 wins, a second and a third. So seems like he's got the form for this track.
Might like the track, but going from optional claimer to a grade 2. And you know what? I'll question that grade 2. I don't think this is a graded race by any stretch of the imagination. But this horse is just over his head today.
CZ Rocket, you mentioned he's not lost 1, not 2, but maybe 3, possibly 4 steps. But he is making the 3rd start off a layoff. And, you know, that's a classic handicapping angle. Do you think that's enough to get him a step and a half back?
No, only because this horse's last 3 races, this horse has never went 3 races in a row without a win, and this horse has now went 3 races in a row without getting a win. Always finds a way to kind of get beat. Now the trainers blaming the Del Mar speed bias. I don't know if I believe it. You know, you just don't beat Father Time. Obviously, he's a gelding. You got to continue to run this horse. This horse has made $576,000 in 5 starts this year. I can't criticize the barn for continuing to keep the horse in training. But, you know, when you can't win the Steve Sexton Mile, a Lone Star, you know, I just got to think you're not going to be looking at winning the Breeders' Cup in 5 weeks. There's a whole lot of strong horses out there.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I can't wait for the Breeders' Cup. Flagstaff, this is a horse that should be coming towards the end. As we mentioned, he did have some of the best late pace figures. Horse usually does improve second off a layoff and is another one with good Santa Anita form.
He does have good Santa Anita form, and he's run 2 pretty good races in a row. Both of them defeats, though. This horse did win the Churchill Downs on the Derby undercard. You know, did win the Commonwealth 4 weeks before that at Kingman. But, you know, CZ Rocket gained on this horse in the stretch the last time and caught up to this horse. I mean, I just, you know, I just do not see this horse being a good fit. A lot of people like this horse. I just do not.
And then you have Collusion Illusion to wrap up yet another 6-horse field. This is one of those horses that's probably going to get overbet because it's well, I don't know if it'll be overbet, but it'll definitely take in a lot of money because it's a My Racehorse horse. So you have all those shareholders out there that like to bet on their horse. But the last couple of races, they probably regretted because he didn't really perform very well.
Well, this horse won its first 5 career starts when you don't count the fact that the horse got pulled up in the American Pharoah. And it hasn't done anything in its last 4 starts. It ran 3rd in this race last year, and that just started to spiral downhill. Ran 12th in the Breeders' Cup Sprint, never had a look. Just even last time they tried this horse turf sprinting. If you got a sprint horse, why are you taking this horse onto the turf? Just doesn't fit.
It seems like they're searching maybe for something out of the horse. So I do like the fact that Collusion Illusion, has run well at Santa Anita. It seems like its favorite track, and getting back there, put a bullet work in on September 25th, fastest of 67 at 4 furlongs. So maybe it's going to take back to the track again. So, all right, Tom, I think you've tipped your hand once again who you like to win here. That's going to be Dr. Shivel, but what do you think behind him?
Absolutely. I guess I'll go CZ Rocket, Colt Fiction, Flagstaff. I just not a deep field, and it's not it is what it is.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think Dr. Shivel is absolutely the horse to beat. I do think CZ Rocket and I can't remember the name off the top of my head. CZ Rocket and Flagstaff will be there. And then you got a Vertical Threat or maybe Colt Fiction, one of those speed horses that'll kind of hang on at the end that collect maybe the show or clean up the superfecta for you. Next race at the Santa Anita is the last night we had Todd Schrupp on from TVG. I don't know if you got a chance to see that at the Players Edge podcast. If you haven't, it'll be. Oh, it was that exciting, huh? But anyway, it was a really good show. It kind of went on for a little bit, but it was a good show. And we talked a little bit about the Rodeo, but he called it the Rodeo Drive, making fun of me, I guess. But in any case, the Rodeo Drive is another Breeders' Cup class, Breeders' Cup win, and you're in. It's 1.25 miles on that little like quirky downhill course. And if you remember, like in the old days when the Oakland Raiders would play on the Oakland A's field in the Coliseum, you'd come down in the outfield and the Raiders would be playing and they'd be at the 50-yard line and all of a sudden a big swath of dirt. I remember they would like let the clock run out so they can go to the other side to kick field goals and stuff like that. But anyway, that's what that race kind of reminds me of. You have to be kind of old school because with these billion-dollar stadiums, they don't have that anymore. But the profile of a Rodeo or Rodeo, depending upon where you're from, drive winner, you want to play the favorite in your exotics and don't be afraid to put it on top. 5 of the past 10 post-time favorites, the public choice, found the winner's circle. Another 2 finished second, and another one collected the show dough. And for whatever reason, the horse that's in gate 3 seems to be the right lane because it's won 5 of the last 10. And early speed / tactical speed looks like it's the right place to be because in this downhill race course, you'd think at 1.25 miles, you'd want some long legs late. But the winners have been in the first 4 in 8 of the last 10, majority of which I think were third and broke from the 3 post, which is just kind of a lot of threes going on. There must be some numerology in that, Tom. If we look at the pace for this race, going to Vegas, it will be the one in the front, followed by Dog Tag, and then Fast Jet Court. And then on the way home, Luck, the Foreign Invader, Neige Blanche, Red Lark, and Ride for the Cause will be your fastest ones on the way home. Tom, do you agree or disagree? Because normally you're pretty disagree. You disagree with me a lot on these. Today you're being very agreeable. I don't know what's going on.
I don't think Neige Blanche is going to be closing the way that it is. I don't think this streak of the 3 is going to be there, and I just don't see this horse closing. It's never won at a distance before, and at this distance, and I just don't think it's going to be closing. I think there's other closers that are going to be closing faster, and we'll discuss that when we go through the horses.
All right, this is the deepest field, I think, of them all. So let's get started with number one, Dog Tag. I love the name Dog Tag. I think it's a pretty solid horse, though it's suffering from second-itis. 4 second-itises in a row.
Agree. Continues to find trouble every time it races, and just will continue to do that today. I think it's going to be in the mix. I don't think this horse can win. It does have a good couple of workouts. It has a bullet work, 2 works back, but you get a new rider today because Rispoli decides to ride somewhere else. You got Joe Bravo. He's never been on this racehorse before. You just don't know what happens. And when a horse can find trouble and you got unsteady, unfamiliar hands riding the horse, it's just not a good combination.
I got a feeling that maybe when you were a little younger, you could find some trouble too, Tom. Fast Jet Court coming in from Brazil last time out was 20-1. Showed a little bit of late interest, but really didn't finish the job. I don't know that it can do it here.
Well, this horse had a terrible start in the last race, and it came to the U.S. and it ran fourth. It was a terrible start. If you look at the visual of this race, you don't see the horse anywhere on the screen until the last 70 yards, and this horse closed like a rocket. This horse won 2 Group 1s in Brazil, and I think this horse is going to like a little bit, of the distance. It showed a propensity to run, this far when it was in Brazil. I got to tell you, I weighed this horse and another one to be my choice for the win. I think this horse could be an upset.
A long shot from Tom. All right. That's what I like to hear. Neige Blanche, you've already given us your thoughts on this one. You say no chance, but I think the horse does have a chance to close. I mean, at the distance does seem like only 2/3 and 4. So maybe a little bit long for this horse, or maybe I think really the opposite. I think maybe it's not long enough.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at this horse's past performance, I look over to the right. This horse has been beaten by so many horses in black type that she's facing today. And it's like, okay, what are you doing? And I don't see the clue on the work tab to jump up and change things today. So what's the definition of insanity? Continuing to do the same thing and expecting a different result.
I wonder, no wonder. Going to Vegas. It's always fun to do because what stays in Vegas goes in Vegas, or what's in Vegas. Anyway, another horse that looks like it's got good form at Santa Anita has run the 1.25 miles there. It's got a win and a second by 2 lengths. I think it's a horse probably won with the highest last race speed figure. Should improve second off a layoff. Likely to be the one that takes the most money, Tom?
Yes, and I think this horse is going to get loose on the lead. I think this horse can go to the front, and if this horse can take the field gate to wire, they might not catch this one. But this horse has shown a propensity in big races. The higher stakes the races is, the higher this horse has a propensity not to close the deal.
Ride for the Cause. It's another horse that, to me, kind of looks like it does have to improve quite a bit, I feel like. And like you mentioned before, when you look at all the bold black type to the right, it seems like it's not fared well against most of the horses in this field.
This is a nice horse. They paid $1 million for this horse. It's just a situation that there's just not a good fit McCarthy's found on the West Coast for this horse. He really doesn't ship the horse much. In fact, he hasn't shipped him at all since he got him from Brad Cox. Cox gave up on him. He ended up in this barn. So I don't feel it to be a good fit today.
Yeah, I don't see the workouts in here either to make up that speed difference with some of the speed rating difference with some of the other horses. Cristalli is another horse to me that looks like it's probably over its head, Tom.
I agree entirely. You can try putting the blinkers on. You can try working it faster. You can try doing whatever. This horse just is not going to get there and is a step below these horses.
Yeah, another one that needs major improvement, some miracle, horse racing miracle to get it done. Magic Attitude coming in from France. I think this is one that probably has a pretty good chance to close late. Has run at the distance, and I feel like it's on the upswing in terms of its performance. A nice bullet workout, maybe one that can find its way into the money.
They convinced Johnny V on a big day like this to leave Belmont with all those stakes races and chase this horse out to the West Coast. It is an East Coast shipper, but it sure didn't do very much in the Diana and the New York. So I'm going to, this horse lost to Mean Mary by 13 lengths 2 races back. There's no Mean Mary in this field. So just by that, this means this horse is a contender, but I don't see this horse winning. Just not a good fit.
Luck. I think Luck will be on Luck's side. I do a lot of work, and we will later on today with the other Tom, 22-1 Tom, and we talk about international horses. We'll be talking about those really big races this weekend in France on Sunday, Tom and I, at 1 o'clock Eastern. So you might want to check back in for that. But this horse ran really well in France on the all-weather surface. Didn't really like the soft track in France. Came over here, found a firm course, and just really put the jets on at the end of the race. This race is a little bit longer, so I feel like the jets are actually going to help this horse. To me, Luck is the international invader, Tom, that takes this race home.
I completely agree. Long story short, if you look at that last race, this horse ran faster each quarter. It had a late burst to win the race. But what got it to me, and we've had this conversation before, is jockeys like to get themselves on position. And if you look at the likely favorite going to Vegas, the last 2 times this horse has been ridden by Flavian Pratt and Rispoli. Both of those jockeys, according to Brad Free of the Racing Form, reached out to Baltus and wanted to ride this horse off of that last performance. So, I was torn between this horse and the 2, and this tipped the scales this way for me on this one.
So you and I agree. Luck. You and I agree. Luck is the winner.
Yes.
All right. Then the last horse in the field is Red Lark. Has a little bit of form sometimes at Santa Anita. I think it fits in terms of maybe has a shot, outside chance to finish maybe 3rd, 4th. What do you think?
In that range, I would figure 5th. I've got him 5th. I got her 5th.
All right. So we both agree Luck is going to win. Who do you feel like is coming in behind Luck, Tom?
Fast Jet Court dog tag in the Johnny V horse, Magic Attitude.
Yeah, I like dog tag. I like Magic Attitude, and I also like Neige Blanche, one that you're not one that you don't care for. But that's horse racing, right? I'm only hoping it comes in 3rd or 4th. It cleans up the exacta trifecta for me later on in the back half of that exotic ticket. So that leaves one race. We're making good time today, like me on the highway most of the time. The last race of the day is the Awesome Again Stakes, and obviously the news here is Bob Baffert scratching out of the Pennsylvania race, the Pennsylvania Derby, to keep his horse because he didn't like the fact that he was outside and probably wasn't going to get the pace advantage on Hot Rod Charlie. I wonder if he's going to get the pace advantage here. The numbers suggest when we go through the pace setup that he probably will be on the front, but the fact is all the numbers are really close. So there's probably 3 or 4 of them that'll have a shot at that. In this race, there's some good names here too that I remember. California Chrome, everybody remembers that horse. That's a horse I think it won the Kentucky Derby, right? And then Mucho Macho Man, that won the Breeders' Cup Classic. And again, that is a Dean and Patty Reeves horse. So a little bit of a theme here today. You got some chalky champs here with 6 of the last 10 to win, going off as the favorite and at average odds of 3 to 5. So don't expect to make a lot of money if you back the chalk. Overall, the post-time favorite hit the board at 9 of 10. Outside posts have won 6 of the last 10. If you look through the program, maybe you'll see like a 4 on there and a 3, and you'll say to yourself, well, that's really not an outside post. But some of the fields were only 5 or 6 deep. So a 5 horse is an outside post in a 6 horse field. Early speed is helpful, not necessary. 6 of the last 10 Awesome Again title holders were within the first 3 at the quarter pole. However, again, that's a little deceptive because some of the fields were a little bit on the skinny side. Looking at the pace, as I mentioned, Medina Spirit could get out front, but Tiz Magician and Tripoli, Express Train, all of them have very similar early pace numbers. I think the 4 of those could really duke it out up front and make for possibly a hot pace. One thing about Medina Spirit is doesn't really have a history of passing horses, but doesn't really get past a lot either. So on the way home, Idle, Tripoli, and Azul Coast, along with Tiz Magician, might be the ones with the most late legs. Tom, are you agreeable here or disagreeable here?
I'm going to vehemently disagree. I think Stiletto Boy is going to run right with Medina Spirit. Go back when he won the Iowa Derby, was on the gas from the word go, 23-3 for a first quarter. I think last time DeSormo just really made a tactical error and let Medina Spirit get away. He won't do that again. As far as coming home, I don't think Idol's going to be that fast. This horse is its first out since March. The barn's already publicly said, we don't have this horse cranked up. We're looking down the road toward the Classic. We're, not going to – we're going to try and get out of this race what we can, but we're not going to expect to run super well. So.
I don't believe him, and I'll tell you why in a minute. I think that's some of that Bill Belichick, we don't have a shot, off to wherever they were going off to. Tis a Magician. That's another one of those, I believe, horses for the My Racehorse are those shareholder horses. So I think you're going to see Tis a Magician get bet down again. Does have some really pace, but could not get to the better side of Tripoli. Like you mentioned in the previous race, when you look at the bold black letters to its right, did finish behind many of these horses when it's faced up against them. I expect it'll probably finish behind at least one or two today on Saturday as well. How about you?
I would say that distance is the big question for me in this horse. This horse likes to run farther. Now, I guess the question you have to ask yourself is Mandela going to go into this race trying to win the race at 9 furlongs or set himself up to try and pull some kind of an upset in the Classic at 10 furlongs? This horse has been first or second its last 4 races, has not done anything bad. Got overtaken by Tripoli in the last out, and I think Tripoli just had a better day and a better setup. I do think this is a talented horse. I think this horse is one of the 3 horses that can win this race.
The second horse is Midcourt. Used to be a formidable horse, though maybe much like CZ Rocket that you talked about earlier, a step or two slower than it used to be, and that's kind of the way it looks based upon the regression, though it did kind of bounce up in its last race, but is not hitting the type of numbers that it used to hit before.
Now, this horse, first of all, it needs Lasix. Second of all, if you look at the California website where it's got the medication, this horse was sick 9 days ago. How the connections feel, they're going to take this horse and race this in this kind of a race against this kind of horse after being sick. I just don't see it. I really would be surprised if this horse did run. And if he does run, I can't support him just running off a fever and that kind of medication. While this isn't a Bob Baffert medication issue, I hate to say that for the fans that think, no, this horse just got we have to give you Tylenol to break the fever, but you're going to be in bed for 3 days type deal. And then you're going to come out a week later and try and run at a championship level. It's kind of like a high school kid. He won the sectionals and the track meet at the 880. And then all of a sudden, a week and a half before the state meet, he gets sick, misses 3 days of training, loses weight, hacks, sneezes, coughs, colds, Tylenol, NyQuil, all that. None of them illegal drugs, but you're just not going to be yourself a week back.
Now, I've been there, done that in wrestling where I've gotten sick and lost to guys that I pounded the time before. Express Train. This is a horse that seems to be one that a lot of folks are backing coming into this race. We'll have to improve a lot off the last one where it was the favorite in the Pacific Classic, but didn't fire. So do you think you can fire in the third off a layoff?
Well, if you look at the last race, this horse going into the first turn had to check up. And the second this horse either finds trouble or doesn't get to run his trip where he can lay right off the leader, this horse doesn't run. You go back and watch the video of this horse, and that's where he's at. If everything falls into place, this horse runs well. A lot of people in California are fans of this horse, and that happens a lot from the time of Seabiscuit to Zenyatta, and they'll back a horse at the window and overbet a horse and not worry about return. I think this is another case with this horse. I don't see this horse running well. I don't see this horse being a factor in the Classic. I just, would get a pace scenario, but then it's not going to be able to lay off the race. It's going to have to use too much, just not today with this group.
Yeah, I think like I said, I think there's a lot that are going to be near the front. So he's going to have to be at the front, holding the front, and show some late stamina, which looks to me like in some of his races, particularly at Santa Anita, he likes to hang at the end. Stiletto Boy. I think this horse is one that's going to have to improve a lot. Its speed numbers say it does not fit here at all. So it's just simply forgettable for Kent DeSormo.
I think to win the race, it's simply forgettable, but I think this horse is an important part of the pace picture. It's right next to Medina Spirit. I think this Ed Moger Jr., who I know a lot about racing and follow it way too much, I've never heard of this guy. I think he's going to say, look, we're going to be the one that's not going to let Medina
apparently
Spirit
he disagrees with you.
What?
I said he's calling to disagree with you.
That's exactly right, to say, why are you saying bad about me? But long and short of it is, I do think that he fits in the pace plate because this horse could be one of them that just doesn't let Medina Spirit get out to an easy lead, let him walk away.
Yeah, I think that's probably what they're probably going to try to do too. Medina Spirit, like I mentioned before, I think there'll be a lot of horses on the gas to get out of the gate, Medina Spirit included. And I feel like if there's a lot of pace, the horse doesn't really pass anybody. So if somebody gets in front of them, he's not going to pass them. And if he gets in front, he really does not get past that often. So I think for him, everything is going to be about where does he break. Do you agree?
Yes, exactly.
And looking back at that last race, there's actually a little, even though he won, I watched that race and it looked like he really fought to win that race to me. And when you look at the internal numbers, there was a lot of regression in the early part of the race, but did improve in the later part of the race. So I wonder which side is going to show up, the early regression or the late progression.
I think this horse will run okay in this group. I would be surprised if this horse won. And I don't think this horse has a snowball's chance in hell of winning the Classic. Let's face facts. This horse shouldn't have won the Derby. This horse had the throat surgery before the Derby. Horses don't come back and run that strong. I've said all this numerous times to you, to the viewers, to Terry, to everybody. Maybe this week, no way, 5 weeks from now, and I'll be the first one to stand in line on that hill against him, both today and in 5 weeks.
Well, we'll see in 5 weeks and tomorrow. So Azul Coast, this is a horse that it seems to me, looking at its form, is on the upswing. You got a lot of late pace improvement there. And you almost had one of those reversals where the horse ran a speed figure above any of its internal speed figures. So that sometimes is a pretty good indication of a horse that's ready to pop. I think Azul Coast could be one that surprises here.
I just question this horse can get the distance. I mean, this horse has been running at a mile. This horse has been, Baffert tried to work at 6 furlongs last out. Compare the work pattern with Medina Spirit. What Baffert does is he works a 6 furlong, then a 5 furlong, then a race. Him going from 4 furlongs to 6 furlongs, he's trying to pop distance into this horse where it's not existent.
Tripoli won the last race. This is another horse that looks to me like it's in really good form. 1-for-1 at Santa Anita. I think that this is a horse that's going to be, but he did lose to Express Train, 2 back. But I feel like this is one that's trending in the right direction. My only worry is that you get the bounce here.
Well, that and the fact that this horse had an ideal trip the last out. If you watch the actual race, Tiz Magician did all the work on the front end, and this horse just waited for him to get tired at the top of the lane and run him down. That was at 10 furlongs. You're shortening up to 9 furlongs today, and while that might not be Tiz Magician's bailiwick, let's face facts. This horse got a perfect trip. Express Train beat this horse 2 back in the San Diego at a mile and a 16th. And before that, this horse won at a mile and a 16th against optional claimers, none of which I've ever heard of before and probably won't ever hear of since. So, we're playing the big stakes today. And no.
No, you don't think he's got a shot. All right. And then Idol, the horse that you feel like doesn't have a chance. And I mentioned there was something in there that I think that the owners were kind of maybe underplaying their hand, so to speak. In its last race, if you look, the horse at a mile and a quarter, 6 furlongs in 1:12:1. And the horse at the 6 furlong marker was he was 2 1/4 lengths off the lead. So that means he probably ran around a 1:12 and a half, somewhere in there. If you look at this workout here on September the 26th, he ran 6 furlongs in 1:12 even. So in other words, in his workout, he ran a faster 6 furlong time than he actually did in the race. To me, many times, that's an indication of a horse that's ready to go. When he runs faster fractions practicing than he does when he's playing, I think you're going to see a really good race out of Idol.
Well, I always avoid betting horses that come off long layoffs. I think part of what you're saying, I understand what you're saying. If you look at that video of that race, this horse caught a lot of dirt in the early part of that race, which might have kept that he didn't run as fast. I just think, when you've got one shot at a big prize, they've already publicly stated they're looking forward to the Breeders' Cup Classic. This horse doesn't get in the Breeders' Cup Class. Well, I guess maybe they'd say that the big cap is a good enough race to get in. But, if it came down to 13 horses entered and you haven't run in 7 months, you better be running somewhere to show that committee you're worth getting a spot in the gate. And I do think with the number of horses that they have this year, notably all the Godolphin entries, I think it's going to be where the committee is going to have to make the decision who gets in. I'm just going to disagree with you. It gets Joe Bravo instead of Joe Rosario. I just don't think it really sets up for it to be where it's at. I could be wrong, and it's where it's called pari-mutuel racing, and we all have opinions.
Yes, if we all agreed on the same horse, he would be like, what was the horse the other day? Went off at 1 to 20. Life is good. So they all would be life is good. Nobody would want to play if they all went off at 1 to 20, right? So who do you like in the Awesome Again Stakes, and who do you see running off into the Breeders' Cup Classic out of here?
I'm going to take Tiz Magician. I think it just sets up well for this horse. I think this horse will handle the shorten up just fine. Mandela's experienced at doing that. And, long and short of it is the fact that I like Tiz Magician over, we'll go Tripoli, Express Train, and I guess I'll throw Medina Spirit in there.
I like the same horse. I do like Tripoli and Tiz Magician. I think those horses probably run 1-2. I also like Idol. I think that workout is a tell that the horse is ready to go. And then I have Medina Spirit, but I would not be surprised at all if the other Bob Baffert horse, Azul Coast, does better. That wraps up the view for this weekend's big Breeders' Cup Win and You're In races, along with the Kentucky Derby qualifier. Tom and I will follow along the Kentucky Derby trail all the way to the Kentucky Derby and the few Breeders' Cup races that are left. I don't know how many are left. There's not that many left, right? Couple more.
There
next
are a
weekend.
Bunch of them next weekend at Keeneland. I think,
and then after that it ends, right?
Yeah, we're going to have 4 of them next week at Keeneland, and I think that's going to bring it to a close.
Yes, and then, of course, we'll have full coverage of the Breeders' Cup when it's here. But that road to the Kentucky Derby will march on all the way through next year, so Tom and I have plenty to talk about. As I mentioned a little bit later on, today at 1 o'clock Eastern, Tom and I, the other Tom, 22-1 Tom, and I will be going over the Arc, and the other big races. I think they're all Breeders' Cup qualifiers as well. Don't know how many horses from over there are going to come over here, but still some really good horses to look at this weekend. If you got nothing to do on Sunday morning before the football games, those would be some big races, big money pools, and a chance to win some good playing opportunities. So hopefully Tom and I will have some winners. As I mentioned, if you haven't had a chance yet to head on over to Horse Racing Radar TV on YouTube, check out the podcast from last night with TVG's Todd Schrupp. Some good stuff in there as well, some funny things and some interesting stuff that you'll learn about Todd that you maybe didn't know. Any final thoughts before we get up and out of here on our Saturdays, Tom?
No, not at all. I look forward to watching the Todd Schrupp thing. I've met him a few times in Lexington, a very interesting fellow, and he was very instrumental in the early stages of TVG. I remember the vignette when him and Corey Nakatani played golf, and he busted out the rec specs. He's a very entertaining fellow.
Yeah, he definitely is entertaining. He's definitely not short on words, which I appreciate. Not one of those interviews, hey, how do you feel that good? No, but he's definitely lets you know what he thinks, and he had a lot of good thoughts to share last night, so we appreciate that. All right, Tom, until we catch up next week, as always, folks, Tom and I wish you nothing but a fantastic Saturday, and may all your college football picks win, and may all of your horses end up in the winner's circle.